medically. The vaccines are deadly. I can prove that to anyone with 2 brain cells still working. Do not take the vaccines. They're designed as a depopulation agenda. If you don't know
all
about
right,
this,
I've confirmed that we've
you
got audio.
find out.
Here's the first thing.
Okay?
Here's the first thing I want to qualify. Just because we're reporting it, we don't agree with it. Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, Periscope, YouTube, gods. Just because we're reporting it doesn't mean we agree with it. There's probably going to be a lot of misinformation communicated here today. We're just reporting the news. That's all there is to it. So we're live. We're in Olympia, Washington. They're doing an open mic right now. And you can probably hear stuff in the background. This is a rally that, I guess while this is going on, this is a rally about basically opening up Washington and reopening the schools. There are 5 planned speakers. The other thing is that we are heading to 2 other events. We're going to be doing at least 3 live streams today. So hard stop at this event at 3 o'clock or after Rep. James Walsh speaks. So it's one or the other. It's what's going to happen. So in other words, 3 o'clock leaving. Rep. James Walsh is done speaking before 3 o'clock leaving. If Rep. James Walsh is still speaking at 3, we will continue to broadcast until 3 o'clock. After that, and likewise, like if he finishes and it's like 2:05, then we'll stick around and keep going. But I have a feeling they started about 30 minutes late, and I have a feeling they're just going to keep going late. So your speakers in order are Michelle Darnell. Michelle, we know. The next person is going to be Representative James Walsh. He is in the Washington State Legislature. He is House of Representative Republican. He was elected in 2016. He represents the 19th District. The next one is Jane Zihong Jin Liberty Jane Mayer. That's the name on the list. Jane migrated from mainland China to Washington 30 years ago. Jane is the International Headquarters Vice President, USA President for the Chinese Democracy and Human Rights Alliance. Melanie Gabrielle is the co-founder of Open Schools USA. She'll be the 4th speaker. If this goes really fast, which I don't think it will, Dr. Pano Churchill, who is the grandson to Winston Churchill. He's an angel investor, a startup innovation master. He's the CEO of the House of Tech Startup Digital Currency ICOs, titled The American Angels. Wow, I might have just learned something about somebody, not Dr. Pano, but another person that I work with, that I literally work with. I'm going to have to dig into that because I'll reserve commentary beyond that, but I'm going to have to kind of dig into what that is. So I know, like, you're going, no, we want to hear the speakers. The problem is you're doing open mic right now, and my experience has been when open mic is going on, you get somebody that comes up and says something just off the walls. And the challenge that I have is that Facebook in particular, and Twitter to a lesser extent, has gotten real touchy on what's broadcasted. And we could get knocked off the air if somebody gets up there and just says something completely bonkers. So that's why right now we're just waiting for the regular program to start. They said this would go on for a couple of more minutes, the open mic, which is why I started. And then then they'll start with the regular program.
You see this misery as well. Entrance Street.
And again, I realize that some of you are probably like, no, we want to hear the people speak. I totally get it. I really do.
I've read city emails encouraging the property owner of the jungle to allow the camp.
What I'm just going to do here.
The city will not. They consider their safety.
There we go.
The real crisis is Olympia is not homelessness. It is lack of leadership.
And so we'll just do a pan.
People are scared to visit our beautiful parks. People are leaving.
And that's
we must heal
that's
this
it.
divide. one relationship at a time.
So I don't know, maybe we'll step
This
back
is
a
why
little
I'm
bit
working
further.
with a politically diverse coalition of candidates from across the political spectrum. I come from the
So you can
left.
kind of
The
see
other people I'm working with
the
are
entire
liberals and
group that's here.
conservatives.
So nobody's like, you're doing
We
clever
want to
camera
model
angles.
behavior
No, I'm
that
not
is
doing clever
appropriate
camera
going
angles.
forward, that we need to join. We are all on the same team. I am optimistic and confident our residents and businesses are up to this challenge, but they need leadership to inspire and support their hard work. I love Olympia. I will not give up on Olympia. Change is the only answer right now. We must win. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's awesome.
This guy with a gun, I mean, I know they had a gun thing, but he's talking to himself. Do you think we should call the police?
My belief is you just shouldn't call the police. I mean, the police are here, or at least they were here. The state police were just there.
And I'm going to give
I think-
you a little
I mean, I don't want to be alarmist, but it's
Yeah, I
he's
wouldn't.
talking to himself. And
I would just,
in your pocket,
I
ready
would just
to go
ignore
at
it.
all
I mean, I get it,
Okay.
but
Thanks so much.
well, there's a lot of loonies.
yeah, but the problem is when the police show up
We
and somebody is
agree
loony,
about,
it usually
coming together.
They get us and
I
not the
was
loonies.
canceled
Well,
last
not
year.
they
One
kind
of
of
the
spin
reasons
everything,
I
right?
was
They don't-
canceled was
Yeah.
for daring
right?
to
They
say nice
they
things
spin them
about
up. They don't
conservatives.
they
I
don't
started
dial it
going to
down. They make it
conservative
worse.
events
So
We should probably
and
stand really
reporting on
close
what
to
I
him, though,
saw
like, so if he
barely.
tries to pull anything.
And
I would say if
apparently
he's just
that
around,
was
he's
a
just
thought
if
crime.
he's around, he's chilling. He's around, he's chilling. Then right?
You've got more experience.
Yeah, I mean, you know, part of what
Anyone
he's looking
else?
for, he could be looking
Before
for
we
the
get
rise,
rolling.
the
Yeah.
attention. So don't
Right.
give it to him, right?
Yeah.
now, right?
Right, true.
I mean,
Okay.
right now, there's nothing actionable, right?
Yeah.
What he's doing is legal.
Right. You could carry a gun. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. What he's doing is 100% legal.
Well, I mean, I knew you could carry like a.
Oh, no.
pistol, but okay.
Yeah.
All right,
What
well
he's
then.
doing is 100. Yeah. Actually, it's the other way around. You can
Okay.
carry
Hmm.
you can carry 5 rifles on you. It's the pistol you need the
Isn't that crazy?
permit for. I
That's
know.
crazy.
I know. You can stick around if you're nervous.
Well, I don't.
Yeah. You might be looking for. There is a gun rally. I don't know if
Yeah,
it's looking.
it's up there.
Oh, it's just up there.
Is the gun rally over?
I believe it's still going on. as
Oh,
far as
are
I
you
know.
part of the gun rally? Or
Well,
you part of the lockdown?
I guess I'm theoretically,
Anyone
here's the
else?
for all of it.
We got time for maybe 2 more.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
So what's this? Does actually still say the state's in phase 2? What's going on?
Yeah, when's it gonna open? I heard he was gonna.
Oh, aren't we so lucky to maybe have 50%? Gotta be thankful. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad, because I was like, I feel like alone. Like I was.
Oh, I'm in Kirkland too. Yeah. I'm in Totem Lake area. Yeah.
Like in those like over there, everybody.
Oh, everybody, double mask. Even people when they're just walking by themselves, or maybe with their spouse walking their dogs, they have their face diapers on. Or when driving. What? I only reluctantly, I've got mine in case I go into a space. Just in case, I'd rather not to. I try to sit in some places where I'm familiar with. If I'm a regular patron in a business or restaurant, they don't ask me, like, sir, do you put your mask on? Otherwise, I try not to, yeah.
I've never been in any
Thank you so much. One more. Oh
Yeah,
my
no,
gosh.
I
You're
shop,
gonna
for instance, when I do my shopping at the Fred Meyer, they're
Okay, two more.
Yeah, they haven't said anything to me.
Yeah.
I just walk in, I just walk
Hello,
to
my
this
name's
old lady, just
Renee. I'm
run
a
my shopping
mom
cart
in
to my,
Tacoma.
I
I do have one child
minding my
that
business, doing my
gets speech
shopping,
therapy
nobody
through
says
Tacoma Public
anything.
Schools.
that's-
However, when
that's
the schools were
awesome. And then the kids
closed,
too, they don't
she didn't get any speech. She
120.
is almost 4 and she has childhood autism and a neurological disorder. The window is very small for her learning to speak for the rest of her
Well, see,
life.
for me personally,
I may have a
seeing
sign
everybody
here
else
talking
fine.
about
I'm
joking
fine. I
about the
just- I have
taxes.
to work
The
in
taxes aren't the thing.
container
My
type
child
sales
is the
and,
thing. My child's socialization
as
is
a
what
decorator,
matters.
I
My
do
child's ability to
contractor,
speak
so I'm
is what
most parts
matters.
fine. Some
My
shit's
tax
not
dollars
been
go
laid up
to
for
support
perhaps
those
the
things
basis
for
of
all
the
children.
work that I've had for years.
And I'm happy to pay them. Take them and support my child, support the little girls that were just here. your fear is important because the mental health, the physical health, and the ability to communicate and learn is resting on our school systems. Our children deserve to be in person. They deserve to be supported, not floundering at home with parents who aren't trained to educate them. It's not about childcare or babysitting. It's about our children being in the environment that is meant for them, with their comrades, with their friends, learning, engaging, laughing, having fun, and having their special needs met. So I understand everybody else's points here. The joke about the taxes, but keep the taxes. Just properly educate my child. That's all I ask. Thank you.
Put you on the spot here. Do you know how much we spend federal, state, and local per child per year?
6,500.
It's north of that. Anyone else? Anyone know how much we spend federal, state, and local in Washington State on average per child per year? I've got a gal here in the front row. Marliza, do you know? $16,000 to $17,000. Yeah, absolutely. Representative Walsh, are we correct on that number, sir? Yep. All right, there you go. So thank you so much, and thanks for being bold enough to come up here and public speak. You, sir.
I'm Rick Shirtleff from Klickitat County, Goldendale, Washington, and today is my granddaughter's birthday, and I want Amanda to have a great day today. She's in 3rd grade. My granddaughter Mavis just started kindergarten from home. We need our kids back in school. I'm running for school board of Goldendale, Washington, starting in May. I'm getting registered so we can have our children where they belong, have them be able to learn what they need to learn, and get all of the right people in the right places with good conservative
So what's happening is the
family
gun
values,
rally
bring
is
our kids
breaking up,
to love America,
and the
to be
people that
free
were at the gun
citizens,
rally
to
are
be
starting to
free
show up here.
thinkers, and to be able to make choices for themselves. Governor Inslee, take off your mask.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, you've been so patient today. I've got one more person who would like to come up and speak for 2 minutes. Do we have 2 minutes to give her? Yeah. All right. She's with the People's Rights Organization.
Well, actually, that's what got me started. 6 years ago, my son, Cleve Rengo, was taken to court for home birthing twins. At the time, he had a child that wasn't quite 1 year old. That child's name is Unity. Unity, I want everybody to know, is a child. President Trump in his Mount Rushmore speech 39 minutes in said, "We will find unity like no one expected." And when he said that, God opened up the gate to the swamp in the state of Washington for corrupt CPS. And I'm telling you right now, Supreme Court judges in Whatcom County and all through the state and America, and the public defenders, the commissioners, all judges in my son's specific case were corrupt. And God blessed me with an unredacted police report to show it and prove it. I can't get my word out because my son is absolutely quashed, and we want all American children that want to come back home out of the CPS swamp to come back home. We want unity to make the charge on that. He's my 7-year-old grandson that I haven't seen for 4 years, and I want him home now with his 4 siblings. Thank you very much.
Okay, with that, I think we're going to go ahead and get started. Melanie Gabriel, can you come on up? We're going to go ahead and do the Pledge of Allegiance. Melanie! You want to go ahead and introduce who you are to this crowd here?
Hello everyone, my name is Melanie Gabriel. I'm 13 years old and in the 8th grade. I've been fighting to open schools. Probably about a year now. It has been a long, hard fight, and I'm not going to give up until we have full 5 days in school.
special, special treat today. My good friend of how long, Carrie? Oh my gosh.
There's like,
We'll give away our ages here.
I want a picture of this
She has an amazing
guy
voice,
with
and
the
she's gonna lead
bagpipes
us
and all.
with the
So
national
bad.
anthem a cappella, right? All right, fantastic.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
T-ball. No, excuse me. Was that not fantastic?
Well, that was a lot better than the CPAC conference.
All right, so, oh my gosh, I'm up now. All right. So, you know, this event, I got a kind of a late notice. Well, actually, it was on Thursday. I got a heads up that, you know, we might have some trouble. And so I took that kind of seriously. But I want to share with you a verse that came to mind. Now, mind you, I don't care what your spiritual persuasion is. I happen to think that the Bible has some good advice to anyone. And it was, for God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of sound mind. 2 Timothy 1:7. And so frankly, that's why we didn't cancel this event today, and that's why we're out here today. So, with that, I wanted to kind of explain, first of all, what we are not, and then what we are. Well, what we are not is a right-wing group. What we are not is a racist group. What we are not is a hateful group. What we are not is any of those labels that they try to pin on us. What we are Americans who care about our neighbors, who care about our friends, who care about our families, our children, and who actually care about those who would oppose us and try to censor us. So, am I right there?
Yes.
Am I right? Yes. Okay. And another thing that we're not is that we're not particularly anti-government. We're not anarchists, nor are we socialists and pro-government. I'd like to read a quote from Henry David Thoreau, because I think this kind of explains what we are. But to speak practically and as a citizen, unlike those who call themselves no government men, I ask for not at once no government, but at once for a better government. Let every man or woman make known what kind of government would command his respect, and then that will be one step toward obtaining it. Are we in agreement with this? Fantastic. Well, then I think we're also in agreement with the idea that liberty is essential. And I think that's another reason why we're out here today. Let me remind you that America declared and fought a war once for independence from tyranny of a king. And lest you forget, or lest you did not learn this in your 8th grade civics class, We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal, and they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their powers of the consent of the governed. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive to these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it, and to institute a new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Can anybody tell me what document that came from? Oh, thank you. You get a gold star, Carrie. It seems time once again to declare our independence. We are being demanded to trade freedom for security. But another founding father once said those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. Ladies and gentlemen, we have lost our way. Apathy and complacency are enemies of justice and freedom. And Americans have been apathetic and complacent for far, far too long. We have allowed every system and institution in our country to become fatally corrupted. And what I see today, or what we see today, I should say, is a consequence of that corruption, and frankly, by extension, a consequence of our apathy and complacency. Our schools, our courts, and our political institutions are all in a state of morbid decay and plunder. Am I exaggerating here, ladies and gentlemen? No, I don't think so. What we are witnessing today is a controlled demolition of the middle class, and by extension, the poor as well. I would call it a wealth redistribution, wealth, power, property redistribution, which frankly started, well, actually it didn't start 10 years ago, it started a long time ago, but the recession, kind of accelerated things. Small businesses are the economic engine of our country and our state. They employ, back when I was running for office, they employ approximately 53% or 54% of the workforce was employed by small businesses. COVID has been weaponized against these same small businesses, against our communities, against our churches, against our families, and frankly, against our most prized asset. What is that? Our children. Do I hear agreement? I just had to check to see if you're awake out there. In Washington, more of our children have died as a consequence of COVID restrictions, as Melanie will describe in a few minutes, than from COVID itself. COVID has been a catalyst to not only destroying and redistributing our wealth, it's also been used as a reason to redistribute our power from the individual to the collective. But it's all to save us, right? Our freedoms to assemble, work, educate, worship, and move about freely have all been stripped from us. I've got to make a little point here. I have to say today that the Capitol Security came and talked to me. I have to give a hat tip to them. We're out here today. They allowed us, but we got to have our PA system. The gentleman that spoke with us said that he believes strongly in freedom of speech, so here we are today. So, there are some people working over there that aren't so bad. So, even our freedom to share information or challenge these directives has been virtually stripped from us. As we heard earlier today, even promoting this event the other day. Who else has gotten one of these? The fact checkers have determined, I'm paraphrasing, that whatever you're sharing, who the heck are these faceless fact checkers? Who the heck are they? But anyway, you know, you get one of the little fact check things. So they're stripping of us of our ability to even communicate information. COVID has also been used to divide us against one another. Now I happen to think, you're not gonna believe this, but you know how I got my political start? I grew up Southern Baptist, although I haven't been to church in quite a while because this is kind of what I do now. God kind of called me into it. But I was a Southern Baptist Republican. And then in about 2010, 2009, 2010, you know, I had a call. And it was the start of the recession. And I found myself, you're gonna gasp at this, rubbing elbows with folks on the left down in Seattle with Occupy. And you know something? Some of what I heard them say was the same stuff I heard around my kitchen table when talking to my family and my friends. And I remember my son at the time, he was 4 years old, and I took him with him, poor little guy, he's 13 now, had a sign. This is not a left or a right issue. This is a corruption issue. Ladies and gentlemen, they are working to divide us. It's intentional. So keep that in mind when you're talking to folks that you believe are the quote-unquote opposition or your enemy. We are Americans. We are not enemies of each other. These kids, and I'll call them kids, I'm 50 years old, I have that license. These kids who are putting on the black stuff and marching, do you realize that their parents lost everything in the recession? A lot of times. Their parents lost their homes, their equity. These kids found themselves saddled with student debt. They are angry. And the media and the powers that be want to divide us amongst each other so that we don't pay attention to what's going on behind the veil. So ladies and gentlemen, you know this truth. So when you interact with these guys, remember to speak the truth in love. Let me continue with my speech. I don't know, I got amped up there. COVID has been used to divide us. I had my own moment of fear. I'm generally a pretty courageous person, actually. I was called into politics back in 2009. But in February of this last year, COVID hit my community. I happen to be from Kirkland. It hit the long-term care facility in my community. And I'll have to tell you, immediately I was gripped by fear. I mean, some of you might have known me. I'm pretty vocal on Facebook. I was saying, hey guys, don't go to church. There's something going on here. I was pretty freaked out. And then after about 2 months, I kind of started watching the data and I started, you know, researching this a little more. And then my husband and I, in about May, we decided, you know, something doesn't seem right. We're going to travel the country. And we did. We traveled the country, 20 states, 5 major cities. And we realized, you know, things just didn't match up. So I understand the idea of being gripped by this fear. And fear sometimes makes you angry and it makes you irrational. It makes you do things that maybe you wouldn't generally do. So I think we have to be sympathetic to that. But the truth, it's been said that the truth shall set you free. Frankly, during that 2 months, that was the most miserable time I've had in 10 years. I mean, because, you know, like I say, I got called into politics. I've been fearful, or not fearful, I've been fearless. And I was struck with this fear. I was paralyzed. I was quiet. You know, Carrie, I was quiet on Facebook, wasn't I? I wasn't seeing my kids. Because I was fearful. That's how a lot of these folks are. But the truth of the situation was revealed to me. And it snapped me out of my depression and my despair. So ladies and gentlemen, please be patient with some of these folks. They are legitimately fearful. And the reality is, with this COVID, it's so unpredictable. we don't really understand. So the fact that when you're dealing with something you don't understand, and particularly when you have media fanning the flames of fear and what I would call monetized hysteria, you know, that's what's going on here. So we need to speak the truth in love, with patience, find common ground. We are Americans. This is our country. And we need to have that sort of humbleness, if you will. Ladies and gentlemen, as Thomas Jefferson once said, the earth belongs to the living. We must rise up and live. Do I hear rise up and live? Rise up and live! Wherever the darkness of lies, destruction, and death creep in to conquer and destroy, we must courageously charge forward, united with the torch of freedom, casting light of truth and love wherever we go, because we are the patriots of a new age. And God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and wisdom. We must push back upon those who would turn us into subjects of a totalitarian New World Order and initiate the Great Reset, as it has recently been called. Today is the day we rise up Washington. We rise up Washington off her knees. Make no mistake, there is a war going on. It's a war for the heart and soul of our great nation, and I happen to think Washington State is a battleground state. The war is between those who would sow lies, destruction, hate, death, and the people deceived by them, and those standing for liberty, truth, love, and life. And frankly, it's not hard to see. No longer will we passively comply with mandates and edicts that are stripping us of our right to life, liberty, and happiness, and are killing the human spirit and our soul. No. Today we pledge to restore liberty and take back our institutions and our state. We are united, we stand firm against the deception and the oppression. The most powerful weapon we have in this fight to take back our state is our Constitution. Both our U.S. and our state. And libertarian attorneys, and other attorneys as well, I just happen to be a libertarian, are the thin black line between us and tyranny. They are in fact the front line. Support them with your time and your money. Do not believe the lie that all attorneys are bad. That is yet another cleverly spun lie. Attorneys should be called to the front lines now. That said, today is the day each of us becomes enlisted and committed to the cause of liberty in our state. It is time to rise. Do I hear rise? Rise! 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 But what do I mean by rise? Is it just rhetoric? Does it mean that I charge the Capitol and knock down the fences? Does it mean that I march the streets with an AR-15? Does it mean that I counter violence with violence? No, ladies and gentlemen, that is a fool's game. And we've recently seen how that plays out. Many well-meaning patriots have fallen into the hands of the very entities that are destroying this country. No, that is a losing strategy. After witnessing the violent history of struggle between tyranny and liberty, our founding fathers created for us a system by which we could execute a non-violent revolution by participating in our judicial and our legislative systems.
So you can see something.
Oh! What about the fraud, you say? We must engage in such an overwhelming way that the margins are so great that stealing elections will be virtually impossible. Ladies and gentlemen, in King County, there are 314 open seats right now. Some of those seats have under 1,000 registered voters. If you doorbell, meet the voters, almost guarantee you will win. And why will you win? Is it because you're a Republican? No. Is it because you're a libertarian? No. Is it because you're a patriot? No. It's because you cared enough to go to that door and to listen to that person. That's why you will win that seat.
I'm gonna have some things
So
to say.
that's
It's
what we
just
need
it's
to
not
do.
safe for me to
From
say it
Dan
right now.
Kitcher to President
I'm not in a
of the
dangerous
United
situation,
States.
but if I open my
We need
app
to
right now, I
recruit,
will
train,
put myself
and
into a
equip
dangerous situation.
candidates and their teams. We must rise above party politics and political rhetoric and focus on issues and the integrity and the capabilities and the electability of the candidates. We must participate in our local and state politics. We must attend hearings. We must become personally familiar to elected officials like Representative Walsh here. I met Jim several years ago, and I think, Jim, I've been pushing you and pushing the legislature, and it doesn't work. I think it works. So, you need to become familiar with your officials. Email them, call them, organize support for legislation, organize support for when they run for office. We must also reclaim our courts. Jay Inslee has appointed 111 judges in Washington state. We saw the consequences of this as the courts overruled the will of the people and killed our $30 car tax. We must help. Oh, I'm sorry, Carrie. We must have court watchers who actually watch the courts and share with the public how these judges are ruling. We need attorneys to step up and run for judicial seats. We need to fund and support those campaigns and purge judges who deviate from upholding the Constitution. In the meantime, we need to raise funds for legal services and bail bonds for people who are unjustly accused or mired in the labyrinth of arbitrary and capricious modern-day legal system. We must engage charitably in our communities. There are hundreds of thousands of people suffering as a consequence of the massive wealth, power, and property redistribution in the state and country. The Great Recession wiped out billions in the middle-class wealth and displaced 500,000 people from their homes in Washington state alone. We have redistributed over $10 billion to quasi-charitable organizations meant to help the homeless, but basically being routed to these organizations as a part of the homeless industrial complex. And yet, we have tents popping up like mushrooms across the state. People have lost across the street. People have lost their jobs, their homes, and ladies and gentlemen, their hope. And they often, when they lose these things, they may turn to vices. If I lost everything, there's a possibility I might turn to a vice to get me through the day. They're struggling with the emotional and physical pain of life. We must take responsibility for our communities voluntarily. Or, ladies and gentlemen, I can assure you the government will fill the void for you if you don't fill that void. They will use it as a further opportunity for plunder without actually helping the very people they purport to be saving. I've seen this play out for 10 years. Again, every system and institution in this country and this state, in my opinion, has become fatally corrupted. So we must rise up and purge our systems and institutions of this corruption. It's going to take time and money to do this, and it's going to start in our neighborhoods and our local communities. Now I'm gonna end here with something that's going to actually sound a little bit harsh. If you call yourself a patriot, but you're not giving 2 hours a week in some way to your community or to the effort, or you're not contributing $20 a month, the cost of a pizza, to the effort, in any way that you want, any effort or organization or candidate, if you are not doing these things, I'm going to challenge your true level of patriotism. We blame the politicians for our current crisis. We can blame Big Corp, we can blame media, we can blame Big Tech, and we can blame our neighbor next door. However, the blame lies with us. So with that, I want to challenge you after today to go home and find out what you can do to rise up and take back this state. Thank you so much.
That's okay. I actually, I'm connected.
Okay, perfect. Good afternoon,
Thank you.
everybody. My name is Mark Rue with Rise Up Washington. I'm the executive director here, and so I'm going to be introducing the names here for our speakers. We've got some very special speakers on top of Michelle Darnell here, and our very next speaker is Representative Jim Walsh.
All right, we're going to move up a little closer.
Was elected in 2016 to the State House of Representatives and was sworn into office on December 8th of that year. He represents the 19th District, which includes parts of Collins County, Grays Harbor, Lewis, Pacific, and I've never said that one before, Wahkiakum counties. Jim is only the third Republican to represent the district since the 1940s. Jim graduated cum laude from Amherst College in '86. He formed a small publishing company in '98 that he continues to operate today. Jim has also written columns for the Aberdeen Daily World newspaper, coached boys and girls basketball teams, and held leadership roles with local and state Republican groups. Please give a warm welcome for our state representative, Jim Walsh.
Thanks. The only update to that bio is I'm not the only conservative elected from the 19th District. In the last election cycle, we took all 3 legislative spots from Southwest Washington. So give yourselves a round. You all helped do that. Let me start the way I like to start at these. The right of petition and of the people peaceably to assemble for the common good shall never be infringed. Are you here for the common good? Well, good. So in Olympia, we're battling. We're battling in that building there, and we're battling online in Zoom meetings. What we're battling for are the foundational values of individual liberty and individual rights, which our state constitution and our federal constitution both enumerate. They enumerate those rights, but they don't grant those rights. Those rights come from a place higher than the top of the dome on that building. By being born, you have the foundational right to speak your mind, to practice your faith as you choose, to own property, to start a family, to associate with other people, all to advance your own self-ownership and self-realization. The core of the foundational values that make this state and this country great is the individual. The individual is the smallest minority that there ever is, yet the greatest force for good in our state, in our communities, in our world. And what we've forgotten in the last 20-odd years here in the state's capital is that foundational focus on individual liberty. We've given in to what the great economist and political theorist Frederick Hayek called the fatal conceit. We've given in to the idea that credentialed experts know better than you how to live your life. Do they? Of course they don't. But it's a lazy, sloppy approach to public policy and politics. It's lazy to tell other people that you know better than they how they should live. Yet that laziness, that is the corruption that is rotting the core of our state government here. That laziness is the decadence that is making our country weak at the points at which it should be strong. That laziness is the opponent. That's the battle we're fighting against. That's the adversary. A lazy decadence in establishing law, in establishing our courts, in establishing our public policy that shapes our communities. We can't give in to that laziness. That laziness is what allowed us to modify our state's constitution to extend and expand the emergency powers that we grant the governor here. We grant those powers to the governor. The governor doesn't have those powers. Those powers are in you. And you delegate those powers to people you elect to public office. But we've forgotten this. We've forgotten this. We believe that the governor has emergency powers. And we've allowed those emergency powers, which were originally designed to last 14 days, to last years. Is that right? No! What we have to do in the battle that we're fighting right now, in that building over there, and in the battles back east in the District of Columbia, we need to remember that that power is inherent in the people, not in the elected officials. Amen. And that when faulty laws and well-meaning but flawed policy shifts the power inherent in the people to a handful of lazy and decadent officials, we are heading for trouble. Do you agree?
Yes! No.
So we have to rediscover the individual liberty. We have to rediscover the foundational values of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We have to rediscover those things that we knew and we know, but we've forgotten, and we've failed to teach to our younger generation. We have to rediscover the brilliance of our foundational documents that said if you look after yourself and your family, if you take care of yourself and your family, the good that comes from that emanates outward to your neighborhood, your city, your county, your state, your nation. But the good starts in you. Don't let someone tell you that the good starts in that building over there, because it doesn't. The policies that start in that building over there lead to those tents over there. It's a laziness and a decadence that treats our neighbors living across the street there like they're animals, not like they're humans. Those are people, and they've been failed by a public policy that treats them like something else. We have to remember what we've forgotten. We have to remember that in every person, even an addict, in the throes of self-destruction, there is a spark of the eternal. We have to protect that spark. We have to nurture that spark in ourselves and our neighbors. That's the genius that creates a free society of free men and women, of free children, of free families. From that, everything else follows. From that, our schools reopen. From that, our restaurants reopen. From that, our businesses restore. But first, we have to rediscover that individual spark, that individual liberty. That's how we win. That's how all of us do better. That's how we turn back the tide of the would-be tyrants and the grubbers of elected power. And it's happening. Be of good cheer. It's happening. In the last few weeks, the current governor of Washington has yielded on a number of key fronts. He's allowed us to proceed into phase 3 of his reopening scheme. He's allowed schools to reopen, but has he really allowed any of this? No, no. He's responded to the pressure that we've put on him at the Capitol, on social media, and in 100,000 meetings like this. We have to keep the pressure on him, and he will fold unwillingly to the greater good of individual liberty. So it's working, but we need to keep fighting. And you know what it is? The fight doesn't end with phase 4. The fight doesn't end with schools open 5 days a week. The fight doesn't end at the next election. The fight goes on forever. That's what our founders knew. Protecting your individual liberty, your individual autonomy, your freedom is a battle that never ends. So be of good cheer, be a happy warrior, and realize that even when we're winning, we have to keep fighting. It is the fight that defines us. God bless you all, be well, and keep fighting.
All right, that's our representative, Jim Walsh. Okay, so I got a really special guest here. Not that Jim Walsh is not special, but we have a survivor here of Tiananmen Square. Those of you that do not know this was a horrific event that killed over 100,000 Chinese people that were nationalists. They loved their country and they wanted their freedom. That is a picture of where we're headed when we allow government to make us think that they're allowing us to do things. Please welcome Jane, Liberty Jane.
Thank you. Thank you for the host. Thank you for our speakers, our House representative, and everybody who tried to do your best to come over here to protect America freedom. I came from 1989. Tiananmen Massacre survived day in June 4th, 1989. It happened in Beijing, China. Millions of people were on Tiananmen Square just because we want to vote. And we want to have the voting rights, and the CCP, Chinese Communist Party regime, doesn't allow us even today. So, millions of people on the street was reported by the Chinese-controlled media as 200 thugs and disturb Chinese peace. This is what happened in China ever since 1949. The Chinese Communist Party regime take over. Endlessly lie, endlessly brainwash people, and in the same time, endlessly brainwash everybody and threatening people. If you disagree with the regime, they said you will be disappeared for sure. That's why in China, mainland have no rights whatsoever. We don't have a freedom of speech, freedom of publication, no freedom of free speech, no freedom of religion choices. Of course, no gun rights, not even a knife. If you want to go buy a knife, you have to have a fingerprint first. And if you want to establish any organization, whatever name it's going to be, before you get a permit to exist, you have to swear and sign you are under the leadership of a CCP, Chinese Communist Party regime, and you support Chinese Communist Party. So that's why in China, 1989, democracy movement happened, and the CCP regime crashed that down. And also because of the same reason in Hong Kong. Hong Kong people only want one thing, to have their Hong Kong executive to be elected by the people, not appointed by Beijing regime. Yeah. However, what happened in Hong Kong? More than 10,000 people were killed, forced to suicide, or they were already killed and then pushed down from the high-rise building, and then the regime claimed they suicided. What happened in China is not a word can describe. We are very much appreciated. Everything, this great land, the United States provided me and many others, new immigrants, to be here and enjoy our freedom. Thank God, thank America, thank you, every one of you, fighting and protect our rights and freedom. The 16th President of the United States, Abraham Lincoln, said this government should be by the people and for the people. And this great land have election and voting rights from every one of us. We need to fairly count each one of the legal votes. This is what we want. Only through this legally fair election, our freedom and constitution rights can be protected. I'm very honored to be here to say we are in the front line to protect America's freedom here. Thank you. It is because I personally know how the CCP regime is infiltrating here in the United States and our Washington state.
They've already taken over. They already have.
They do infiltration through media, through our big giant corporations doing business and earning money from China. When I was working in Shanghai Hongqiao Airport, I was 16 years old. And what happened at that time is President Nixon visited China. Guess what happened? Western world have a freedom of reporting, incident report. The ABC News want to broadcast right away at the time of a president landing from the flight. So they want to install a satellite, big, huge dish there for transform this immediate news. What the live stream, okay? What the CCP regime did was, you're not allowed to setting that satellite here unless you agree and sign the agreement. You will train our people, and in the same time, we must know everything already. And also, after you use it, you must sell that to us. The infiltration and the forcible business and the stealing is start that time, but it could be earlier, because during the Jinggangshan revolution fighting, there are already some English-speaking people in there, and they never left China. I worked in foreign languages press. We have some support the Chinese regime foreigners, and they do all the propaganda for the CCP regime, and tell people how wonderful it is every day to the world. Communism sucks, is a liar, and it's threatening Chinese people every day, and now they are threatening us here every day. If you want to say anything free, like that ball game player, I don't remember his name, but he said he supported Hong Kong. Then what happened to him? They demanded him to be fired, otherwise this ball game company cannot play in China, earn big bucks. And then a lot of companies backed down for money, for selling their heart, their soul, and our freedom. We shall not stand for that. We must against it. Amen. Today's the issue is America first or global first. Americans should be first. We are Americans. Is that right? What the globalism is? It's a big giant corporations like Microsoft, like Twitter and Facebook and such companies alike. Make a good deal with China, and then they earn big money and rip off our rights for our freedom and just freely wipe you out. Our organization Twitter account and Facebook was closed down several times because there are some infiltrators in those companies working for the CCP and tell those big companies, if you want to keep business in China, therefore you must closing down their account. This is what happened. This is what happening. This is still what happening now. U.S. is in the war now. We shall not back down. We shall keep fighting till everyone is free, and a free speech, and a free publication, and freely have your gun. The United States is great because we have wonderful, the best constitution in the world. We must protect this great nation, protect our constitutional rights. I, as a new immigrant here, I personally experienced how the CCP infiltrated in this country. Somebody come toward me, said, you were a journalist before, we have a job for you. You can set up a newspaper or whatever company. You don't have to worry about the money. You know, the money will be paid by the CCP. And then some others found out I was single, sent some men to my house. Jesus, I said, get out! Because I don't know you. You introduce you're a good friend of someone. I don't know you, sorry. And then they also ask, what kind of a leader you want to be? We can help. We'll help you to be elected. I I can tell you, they do the same thing to our government officials. They also send spies to all different organizations, same time.
Yeah.
They divide our Chinese democracy and human rights organizations by sending those thugs, Chinese spies, in both parties, both organizations, and then make you fight, internal fight. And that's what they are doing to the United States. They send spies to both parties and many different organizations because the CCP want to control and influence the United States politics. They do not only get money out of us, they also want to control us. That's what the CCP is. Because the Chinese Communist Party have a say. We want to liberate the whole humanity. What that really is, they want to take over the whole world. That is why we are infiltrated. In the United Kingdom, there are 17 very, very old, prestigious universities was sold to Chinese regime. If anyone told you whichever company from China is a private company, they are lying. Just look at a Hong Kong bookstore, which is selling the books and magazines and
I'm moving around because I'm working multi-cameras and there's certain pictures I want to get.
And human rights. The CCP regime demand the owner to provide all the purchaser's name, address, and phone number.
What does that accomplish?
The owner refused.
What's that?
So he was taken out to the mainland China. Even today, there is no sentencing.
I understood it because I'm like, you know what, people feel like they're being pushed.
Then they attacked and work down those employees. None of the employees in Hong Kong bookstore agreed to provide this kind of private information to the CCP regime. Guess what happened? Every one of them sent it to China. This is what a private company is by the mainland Chinese regime. So I would like to ask you, do never trust the CCP regime. Do never have any hope on the CCP regime. Third, do never wish they change and work with them at all. As long as you still have the hope, you will be leading your nose to wherever they can kill you, finally, without even using guns, you'll take over. Okay? They have an immigration flood, went to Inner Mongolian, went to Uyghur, Xinjiang, went to Taiwan, and they have tons of CCP regime people came over here too. There are more than 75,000 underground Chinese Communist Party sacred branches. Of course, they are in the United States too. And they have places for the news media, like a Chinese radio station. They tell you who to elect. They host the conference, they host the event, and they told Chinese people, this is what you should vote. Their infiltration is so deep, so open. We shall not stand for it, okay?
Seattle's got some weird art.
I would like to thank you, everybody, and thank you for protecting your rights, including my rights. We shall jointly working together, fight for our freedom, and fight against those lies, and fight against those divisions among us. Okay, we must talk to each other, regardless what party, what organization we are in, because their division and conquer is what.
Go fuck your shit.
And thank you so much. I
Ah,
love
boys,
you.
fuck you,
Freedom
Antifa.
fighters.
I'm Malcontent.
Thank you.
Aye, aye.
Have a
Howdy, howdy.
We're watching you.
Don't
All right.
dox nobody today, okay? All right, that's not a
The
nice
only
thing
people
to
we
do.
got to come after is people like you.
Through all that
Bye, Malcontent.
Bye.
Ah, boy. Fuck you, Antifa.
If we relax like we have been. Today, our next, well, before I say that, I just want to make this point. While the CCP had
What do you mean, what am
only
I?
a few hundred rebels
Independent.
in Tiananmen Square, there was
Yep.
actually over 100,000 people who were smashed by tanks.
Independent, left on some things, far left on some things, right on a couple of things.
What do you write about?
Guns. Okay. Believe in the Constitution, all 27 amendments,
Their totalitarian tactics,
particularly 1 through 10.
you better find out.
Gun owner.
This country
So
is
I'm
precious.
politically right in that.
For that kind of
What are you
attack.
left about?
What am I left about?
With this virus.
I am
Mental illness.
left on probably single-payer health care.
How much mental
you want the
illness are we
government to do
going
that?
to have to
I said I'm
deal with
single-payer health care.
in the future?
If that was easy to figure out, we would have single-payer health care, right?
Yeah, self-care was easy to figure out. We figured it out.
We would have figured it out,
But obviously
right?
we haven't figured
Right?
it out.
So you're asking me a loaded question. You know what I'm saying? So you just asked what I'm left on.
Oh
So,
yeah, what are you, so you're just left about healthcare?
well, single-payer health care ties in a lot of things.
Like,
She has been, she's been rallying.
all right, how does it tie into other things?
Well, it
like-
ties into drug treatment, mental health treatment, into
Right, well, yeah,
housing.
we can all agree that folks shouldn't be given at least, a slight hand on, getting up. But like when they decide to continuously do the same thing over and over again, like, what's the point of having them around?
So are you calling for death camps and extermination?
No.
Well,
I
you
don't, I don't,
well,
I don't
well,
think I should be expending my fucking money towards a useless fucking degenerate.
but then at what point doesn't that, in your words, useful fucking degenerate, they have to eat, they have to do, so then they're going to go to crime. And then eventually, if we put them in prison, then we're still paying for them anyway. Can we agree with that?
Yeah, true. Then we can give them a fucking styrofoam float and send them out there to maritime law. Let the fucking Somalians have them. I don't give a shit. Like fucking, I've no reason for giving any more fucking money towards fucking useless degenerates or trans.
Hey, I got a question for you.
All right.
So this fella that you posted up saying the usual suspects, what do you mean by that?
I know who he is.
Okay, bringing out the usual suspects. What's the usual suspect?
He shows up at these events, that's all.
Like a pussy like you are?
I don't show up to all these events.
We're asking questions, we're being polite. The reason why is because a lot of people use your stuff to dox people that aren't doing anything to anyone. Just like us, we're just asking questions.
Right? And I'm having a conversation with you?
Yeah.
Right?
But people use your stuff.
Did we not just have a good conversation? Were you getting an elbow?
Yeah, I heard. I was just saying.
You're not a communist, right?
That hopefully.
No, I would not identify myself as a communist.
All right. Thank goodness. All right.
I just want to make
had a
sure
good
that
conversation then.
you're aware that people do use your footage to try to dox people. And I've already had to tell 3 other people today that have been on your footage to be like, hey, people are being doxed, and they do use yours. So I just want to make sure that you don't advocate for doxing or violence.
I don't advocate for doxing. I was doxed.
Okay. I appreciate it. I just want to make sure because
I was doxed, very high profile dox. So I don't advocate it. And I have actually, if you're looking, you'll flip through. You'll see where I've gone and said, left or right, doxing's wrong. When Katie Davis Court got pepper sprayed back at the Back the Blue thing in October, if you follow me, you know I said no, wrong. Because Katie didn't do anything. Broad daylight, she was just standing there, right?
Okay.
And my view on that is, Katie's there doing her First Amendment thing. I may not agree with one thing that Katie says, but Katie has a fundamental right, right, to be First Amendment, right? Which includes the right to a free press.
Like some of my friends, I'll hang out with them. They know that I support abortion up to a certain point. They don't support abortion at all in some cases.
Right.
But
There you go. That's another left thing. I support abortion. I don't support late term abortion unless it is because like the mother's going to die, the fetus is totally unviable, something like that.
Once a heartbeat happens, that's why.
All right.
So I just want to make sure because you're one of the ones that I found through here. So I wanted to address it because There's a lot of people that just want to live their lives. They don't have any hate. There's people that are all in the patriot community of all, all sexes, races, everything. They just want to live their lives and be able to not have their freedoms get taken away. And unfortunately, there are people that use your information, and they're like, hey, they look at you as a friendly for them. So that's where I have a disagreement.
All right, that's fair. So, I mean, here, this is the thing I'll say.
Yeah.
If you've been listening to the speakers here, there's a lot, particularly Michelle said, that I think both sides, left, right, would agree with. And I'll close with this. You may have heard me say this before, and I'll say this to all of you, especially you. I think they use they. And I'll tell, right, and I'm live, my followers have heard me say this. They use wedge issues like abortion, like guns, like single-payer health care to keep us divided.
Yep.
If we sat down,
And race.
and I won't disagree with that. I won't disagree with that. If we sat down and had beers, and we talked about the symptoms of the disease, we would probably agree with an 80%, including you and me. If we sat down and then we tried to define the disease, so in other words, here are the symptoms, we think the disease is this, we'd probably get to 60 to 70%.
Yeah, pretty close.
Where it all falls apart, how do you cure the disease? But if we kept having a civil conversation, we'd probably get to 50%. And then the 50% that's left over, we would probably go, you know what? 30% of it is those guys playing that 30% to keep us pissed off.
Yeah.
And then it's the 20%. And I get it. Some of that stuff in the 20%, you and I are never going to agree. Ever, ever, ever. Totally get it. But some of that 20% we will.
I chalk it up to skulls to kind of like, remember the gladiatorium with Roman? Like
Yeah.
Tara?
Yeah.
The people would rise up unless they had bloodshed to see.
Yeah.
That's what the media and the career politicians do. So that's where at least you and I can see on that. So I appreciate you for that.
Yeah. I appreciate you guys having a civil conversation, right?
Dr. Churchill.
All right. We good?
Yeah.
All right.
Cool. I appreciate it.
So you know it's not bullshit if you go to the very beginning of the stream. I said I was leaving at 3 o'clock no matter what because I'm heading down to PDFs.
Oh,
tonight's gonna be fun. You got some plans tonight?
They're doing actually it's Breonna Taylor doing
Yeah.
That should be
no. You know what? I think they had their fun last night.
No, I don't know. Seems like it's been a couple nights in a row they've been having fun.
Well, we'll see what kettled, 13 people arrested. We'll see what happens.
I think they got a lot of information last night. I think it was a good opportunity.
All right, guys.
All right. Hey, bud. Have fun.
We good? All right, man. I'll give it to you.
Yeah, it's all right. Hey, just be safe out there because I know that there is some stuff that might happen tonight. I know the police in Portland are getting kind of crazy, and they are trying.
Oh, they're always crazy down there.
Well, they're trying to split off the press from the rest of them. So
I saw that last night.
Yeah, so just make sure you take care of yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, guys.
Early stage startup to blossom and thus create many millions of new jobs, along with massive wealth and prosperity for our nation. Dr. Churchill is the chairman of the independent third party, the Lincoln Party, and he is also the president of Educational International Affairs think tank and a benevolent society, the Churchill Society. Please welcome Dr. Churchill.
They're actually just speaker. I said 3, it's 2:50, and this is the last speaker. And I have a soft spot for bagpipes. We'll take a little Scotland the Brave.
Good afternoon, and thank you for being here. As you noticed, we couldn't go anywhere without bagpipes, giving a steer into our heart and putting some steel into our spine, some courage that we all deserve. As you're all so courageous to be out here with me, and recall that there are better days ahead. I know we have suffered. I know we have been beaten. I know we have been kept down. However, there are better days ahead. And I'm here to give the good news, the news that need to cheer your heart and to recall that as citizens, we are not subject to any other authority except our Constitution, our Bill of Rights, and our Declaration of Independence. So, without further ado, I will simply speak on a short speech out of my prepared remarks.
I didn't get it down.
Don't be scared. I shall not follow the letter. I shall just go through and help you to understand
Bees out.
that
I'll start off with bees out.
we are here together, and
I am going to stick to my 3 o'clock hard
the
stop.
facts with which I shall deal this afternoon are mainly old and familiar. Yet, there is something new and innovative in the general use of the facts. And this is what joins us together, because although there is novelty to the idea that none of us is any longer considered a slave or a subject to a king, to any tyrannical authority or any other institution, as citizens we ought to recall that we are subjects to the Declaration of Independence. I make a clear distinction between the Declaration and the Bill of Rights and the Constitution, because whereas the one is not a legal document, and I speak of the Declaration of Independence, it is actually the most important document that allowed us to become who we are. Citizens as opposed to subjects. It's a monumental difference. I am proud to call myself the American Churchill, only why I am a citizen and not subject to any queen, or worse. So, as I see all of you understanding the important difference, we ought together to invest in a further understanding for the reason why we live here, and if need be, we die here to defend those ancient rights. And those rights are to enjoy liberty and the pursuit of happiness. As I hear you, you have asked me many times before to represent you, and I heed your call. Yet, every time when we are together, we have been attacked and viciously maligned by our enemies of freedom. So shall we come together again this time and rise up, as we need to protect each other, to protect our rights, and to defend the Republic for which many others before us have shed their blood. The reason for me standing in front of you is to wake up this ancient feeling, the feeling that made people seek liberty at the cost of death. As you know, famous people before us, they went to battle with a flag that said, "Give me liberty or give me death," and they meant it. We do not need to make such important sacrifice today. The only thing is enough to cast your vote, and cast your vote for a person that you think will represent this ancient principle, nothing less. And how do you distinguish between the people who are worthy of your vote or not? Is by simple conversation, in a civilized discourse, with love and kindness that will allow you to recognize those who want to keep us united versus ones who want to divide you so they can rule above you. It has been said by great ancient peoples that those who do not expose themselves to the electioneering, to the democratic elections, and to the vagaries of public office, they are led by people far inferior to themselves. So should we not be led by inferior people who have no track, no belief, and certainly no hesitation to take away your liberties, you ought to expose yourselves to the politics by involving yourselves in the school board, in any other elected position that will elevate you to the point of a leader within our communities. And this is why I was called here to speak because I am unafraid to include myself in the voting rolls and to stand up and accept your vote at times when you ask me to represent you. It just so happens that in my family, in my blood, in my DNA, we have a little bit of that political thing running. You might have heard. It's some kind of a virus that cannot be defeated by inoculation against it. We are called to serve, and service is what we give. But they only calls us to come, you know, when the things are difficult, and oftentimes when things are unstoppable. And then they say, okay, let's draft a Churchill now to see if he can take the chestnuts out of the fire, because the fire is too hot. Then we take it, you know, often foolishly, often with candor, and sometimes even with the necessity speaking upon us that if we don't do it, nobody else wants that awful job. And it is a bitter pill sometimes. You probably know my grandfather, they tried to assassinate him 61 times. Not all of them from effing Adolf Hitler and the Nazis. There were some local crazy yahoos from England, they tried to kill him too. We have to be aware that there is a cost to public service, especially when you do something good, and you earn the enmity of those powerful people and the sinister folks who seek to dominate you and to deprive you of your basic liberties. Now, thank God we are not facing, you know, the hordes of Adolf Hitler wanting to drive us into 1,000 years of misery, darkness, and depression. But I think we were driven just, if I recall, until today into a depression lasting 365 days. And maybe a bit more or a bit less. And I think now we are coming out of it and shaking our head.
All right,
and
it's
saying,
3 o'clock, so
what
I've got to
was that all
bounce.
about? Because, as you all know, that we've been punked. My good sir will tell you you've been punked.
So if you weren't here at the beginning of the stream, I had said that I would be leaving at 3 because we're heading to Portland. So I'm sticking to the plan because there's a lot going on down there. Oh, you're fine. All right.
Yes, that was very good.
Oops, let me do this. There we go. Here, if I go, oh well. All right, so we're wrapping up here. I had said at the start of the stream we were going to wrap at 3 o'clock, one way or the other. I had originally planned to stay just through Representative Walsh. I had said that, but then I kind of caveated that if Representative Walsh finished up, you know, like 2:15-ish or something, then I'd stick around. He finished at 2:18. I stuck around. An interesting conversation with the Proud Boys. I always got to remember it's backwards. Loving this. I'm loving this. This is just wonderful. So anyway, you know, a couple of thoughts, and then I'm going to hit the road. You know, the first speaker, Michelle Darnell, she alluded to her time at Occupy and talking to all sorts of people and all. And Michelle and I became really good friends during Occupy. And I put in the comments that Michelle and I are almost kind of mirror images, and people, when they hear mirror images, go, oh, you mean you're the same as her? No, when you say a mirror image of something, that does not mean the same. It means, right, you're looking in a mirror, you're looking at the opposite. And there are some things that Michelle and I agree on passionately. And, you know, if you listen to her talk, you heard her talk about the housing crisis, about, you know, being peaceful in addressing things, and about wealth transfer. These are not core far-right pillars. You know, on the other side of the coin, you know, there are other views that she, and I will also say this about Michelle, which people may not know about the first speaker. She is a tireless advocate for trying to keep people from becoming unhomed, and keeping people in their houses, and dealing with mortgage fraud, and when mortgage companies take advantage of people, and particularly working with minorities and people that are disadvantaged. And that's part of what she does to pay the bills. And I want people to know that about the first speaker. It's important because it goes back to the conversation I had with the Proud Boys. Oh my God, you're talking to the Proud Boys. I've had this conversation with other people, and it's always resonated with people, and I meant what I said. And if you've been following me for months or even years, there was nothing inconsistent in what I said. I do firmly believe that if most people in this country could sit down and have a civil conversation, that most people would agree with 80% of the problems, the symptoms of the disease. Most people agree. You know, we saw this in Denny Park. Great example, Denny Park. We talked to, you know, housing advocates, super far left. We observed people mutual aid. We talked to a police officer. We talked to a chud. And they all agreed. Everyone agreed on the symptoms. Everybody. They all said the same thing. There was a lot of agreement on what the disease was, giving the disease a name. People on the far left to the far right didn't agree on the disease name, but as you got closer to the middle, when you moved away from the fringe, there was agreement. Where it all falls apart is, how do you fix it? That's where it all falls apart. How do you cure the disease? And that's where it falls apart. So, and I mean it. I totally mean it, because that actually, it's an interesting segue, and I'll close with this because I got to hit the road. Because this goes back to my conversations that I had at Occupy with Michelle. And I've talked about this experience before. One day when I was at Occupy, there was Michelle, there was myself, there was a, what I learned is a narco-syndicalist anarchist. And then there was a insurrectionist anarchist. And I know the word insurrectionist is loaded. That has nothing to do with what happened in Washington, D.C. Go do a Google search. I don't have the time to explain what an insurrectionary anarchist is, but it is a category of anarchists. And I have spoken before, just as I don't agree or believe in almost anything the Proud Boys stand for, and they know that. That was very obvious in that conversation. I don't agree specifically to insurrectionary anarchists, what they believe in. And I'm not a communist. It shouldn't be a surprise to anybody. It was to me, it was a little bit of a weird question. Like, really? That's why I was like, no. Like, what? And I think the problem with that is, I think people, Marxism, communism, socialism, they just mash it into this ball. And that's not true. It's not even closely true. And Marxism is just a philosophy. It is not a political foundation or an economic foundation, but that's a whole separate conversation. We talked for hours, the four of us. And so you had somebody who was left of center, disillusioned with the Democratic Party. You had Michelle, who was kind of Tea Party at that time, dipping her toe into libertarianism. You had the insurrectionary anarchists. You had kind of, when you say, I'm going to say a pacifist anarchist, because there is a difference. And there are a couple other people that kind of jumped in and out of that conversation. But I remember these core 4 groups. I learned a lot about anarchists, number one, in that conversation. I walked away going, I know so much more, and that was worth the price of admission. But you know what? There were 2 things we observed, and this was in the very beginning days of Occupy. One, that there was a bunch of agreement, and that we could actually talk to each other, and that they, in the South Parks, they keep us divided with wedge issues and with stuff that doesn't matter. Because when we sat down and we talked about it, I was like, holy crap, we agree on a bunch of stuff. Where it kind of fell apart was how to fix it, right? Michelle's views are very libertarian, and so that, of course, is you can kind of do what you want, pull yourself up by the bootstraps. If you fall on your face, that's too bad. But I don't want to put words in her mouth, because I go back to, if in Michelle's view, if somebody is taken advantage of, if the system, again, back to these more, predatory lending, then she's going to fight for that, right? She doesn't blame people for falling into that. There are other people more to the right goes, well, that was your fault. You signed that stupid loan. And as we learned in 2008, 2009, there's people like the people that put that mortgage paperwork in front of me didn't even understand the friggin' paperwork themselves, right? And as we learned about toxic assets and derivative mortgages, and you have people that ended up owning their houses because they couldn't even figure out who actually held the mortgage for the house that they had bought. And we know all this stuff happened for fact. So sheer views aren't that as far. Insurrectionary anarchists, some of them are, they're like Boogaloo, but they're on the opposite side. They're on the far left. They're on the far right. They just want to see it burn. I'm not saying all anarchists. And when I say insurrectionary, again, I'm not talking about January 6th. It's a loaded word. Go look it up. Go look up what an insurrectionary anarchist is. Very few anarchists are insurrectionary. Man, it's a tough word. Anarchists. A lot of them, are right of that position, because insurrectionary anarchist is about as far left as you can get, just as, say, a far-right boogaloo boy who wants to start a race war, to start a civil war, so it all burns down and we can have a new glorious utopia. They're as far right. So they're as opposite as you can get. So, I don't know. I mean, I'll talk some things here that I think was ick. Michelle was... There was this woman that came over and talked to me, and, earlier about, they heard there was going to be problems here and stuff, and it's like, I didn't see any of that. That's number one. And, number two, Gun Rally heard a little bit about stuff like that. Number two over there, right, there's this professional victimhood that goes on, and I don't understand that. That's just one thing I don't understand. Oh, they're going to get us. Oh, they're this. Oh, they're that. And of course nothing happened. And they're like, well, it's because it's like, no, because nothing was going to happen in the first place. If anything, anybody who started that rumor, it was probably on your side. Because I didn't see any chatter that said there was going to be anything. And, the gun rally thing, first of all, I couldn't find an address for it. I just didn't know it was good. I knew it'd be somewhere around here, but couldn't find an address online for it. Some of the original promotion stuff, Facebook pulled it down, because that's what Facebook's doing, that kind of stuff. And the little bit that I'd heard about it, I was like, it's going to be one of these events, 15, 20 people and 50 reporters, forget it. And as we saw, because there was some mainstream media over there, that there was some peeps that were over there. So anyway, I'm going to bounce. I need to roll to Portland, and the next step will be Breonna Taylor Memorial. Malcontent out.